as promised, I wanted to do a tutorial on dodge and burn. I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's going to be a crazy long video otherwise. Yeah, I would just want to show you guys the basics and hope you learn a thing or two. Yeah, so let's get started. There's actually 3 ways to do dodge and burn on your photo, and I'm going to briefly show you all 3 ways. I just quickly grabbed a photo of 3 dogs. I will apologize beforehand, it's not the best photo because the focus is clearly on the dog in the middle and not on those 2 on the sides. But yeah, I have a photo of 3 very different dogs, so I thought this would be a very good example. So let's get to the first way. We will create a new layer down here and set it to overlay, and then we will grab the paint bucket and grab a 50% gray color and fill it, which you will not see because overlay will show the areas that are brighter than 50% gray and the areas that are darker than 50% gray. So 50% gray will be completely invisible. So this is basically our base image. Next, we will grab the dodge and burn tool, which you find right here. This one is the dodge tool, this one is the burn tool, and the dodge tool will brighten the image. So I grab a soft round brush, and you see if I paint on it, let me increase the opacity. If I paint on this area, it will brighten the area because I'm dodging this part of the image. I'm not going to go into too much detail of what the dodge and burn tool actually does. Just keep in mind, dodge brightens the image and burn darkens the image. So what you basically want to do is brighten this gray layer, because if it's brighter than 50% gray, it will show as a brighter area on your base image. And if you use burn, which makes this 50% gray darker than the 50% gray, it will darken the areas of the image. See, this burn tool will darken the image. So what we basically want to do is we want to highlight the accentuate the highlights and the shadows even more, so our subjects will be more contrasty. What we do is I usually set the exposure to around 30% so I can control it better. So what I'm doing is I'm grabbing this layer and using the dodge tool to brighten areas like the eyes. If you're using a Wacom tablet or something to do it, you can set the opacity to higher and just use pen pressure. But, well, I mean, I have a Wacom tablet, but I don't usually use it for photo editing, so I'm just doing it with my mouse. And as you can see, you can already see a difference in the eyes, and I will just keep doing that with all the areas that I want brighter or darker. And basically you would just keep going like this until you reach your desired effect. I will not do the whole image. I have a layer that I've already done, and I will show you what it will look like once it is done. So you can see the difference. This image is a lot more contrasty than without the dodge and burn. And you can see I just exaggerated the shadows and the highlights basically. And if I set the layer to normal, you will see the rough outlines of Shula, because, well, that's just the areas I corrected. So the next method would be just creating a layer and set it to overlay. And instead of using the dodge and burn tool at all, I will just use a normal brush tool, use a soft round brush, and I will set the foreground and background color to black and white, and I will just paint over the image, because as you remember, if it's darker than 50% gray, it will show in the overlay mode, and if it's brighter, it will show as well. So as you can see, I have the black color here, and as I paint over this dog, it will become darker because it's darker than 50% gray. So I usually set the opacity to around 10 to 15, so I don't exaggerate it too much. And then I will just do the same thing basically. I will paint over the areas that I want to have darker, like the pupil, and then I can just simply click X to switch the colors and paint over the areas that I want to have brighter. This is my preferred method because it's so easy to change the black and white color here with X. You can use this and change easily as well with Control O, but since this is this has three tools, you will be changing between all three tools, which is to me less convenient. So I basically do the very same thing. I use black to accentuate the shadows and white to work out the highlights. And as before, I will not be doing the entire dog on camera because it will just take too long, and well, where exactly you put the shadows and the highlights, it's more or less a matter of practice, so just watching me do it one time won't help you there. You will just have to figure out where to paint over by yourselves. But basically you can see on your photo where the shadow areas are, and you just go over them with black, and you can also see where the highlights are, and you just paint over them with white. And as you can see, as I go, I change the size of my brush depending on which area I'm working on. But I think if you do it more often, you will get a better feel for it yourself. So as before, just let's see the before and after of this very short edit. I've done already finished. I have an already finished layer here, which is this one. So as you can see, the finished product would look something like this. And if I put a gray layer underneath, you can see that I did basically the same thing as with the dodge and burn tool. So there's not a big difference here, just a different approach. So the last method, and also my least preferred method, is just duplicating the base layer and using the dodge and burn tool directly on the image. This is not my preferred way just because I feel like I have a little less control. And well, if I have to remove something, I would have to mask it out, which is a lot more, a lot less convenient than the two other methods that I showed you. But basically, we're doing the very same thing. I'm painting over, sorry, I'm painting over highlights with the dodge tool, and changing also my brush size as I go, and I'm painting over shadow areas with my burn tool, and the effect will be very similar, I think, but this is just not my preferred way of doing this. Well, I mentioned the reasons just now, but if you want to do it this way, you can. What I would definitely not recommend is just doing it on the base layer without creating a new layer, because then you have no control whatsoever. If you want to correct an area, you really can't do that. So that's definitely not recommended. But yes, you can try out all these methods and figure out for yourself which one is your favorite. I would keep going for just a little bit so you can see which areas I'm highlighting. But yeah, basically you've seen it on the two other dogs. It's not much different here. So I have also pre-edited a layer for this dog and for this method. So as you can see, this would be the final product. This is just the base image with dodge and burn applied. Let me show you a before and after of all the dogs. And well, I think you can decide for yourself what method you prefer. And I would like to add that I really do not spend a lot of time to do dodge and burn in my photos. I just usually increase the clarity and contrast on my objects and don't do a whole lot of dodge and burn because I'm just too impatient to do it, and because I think on a white dog like Shula it just doesn't show quite as much, although well, other people might argue otherwise. But yeah, here you go. Here, that's the basics of dodge and burn, and I hope this was somewhat understandable. I don't feel like I explained it very well, but I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.